On this program, adapting to a new world. Technology at the service of learning and the effects of aging on memory. The latest research shows that infants only a few months old already have amazing cognitive abilities. For these abilities to become manifest in the first few days of life, the learning process has to have been set in motion during intrauterine life. During pregnancy, mother and child live in osmosis. Every movement the mother makes is felt by the body of the fetus growing inside her. So it is through the mother's life that the fetus first senses the world, and the newborn sensations will often resume or continue those experienced during its fetus life. It is therefore through the sensations it perceived as a fetus that the newborn recognizes its mother. The first embraces, caresses, and words of the mother recreate, in part, the olfactory, tactile, and auditory stimulations perceived in the womb. This infant can therefore gently adapt to its new world. Nursing is considered to be one of the infant's first introductions to a dietary culture. Studies have shown that the taste of mother's milk varies according to the mother's eating habits and diet. Actually, nursing rounds out and reinforces the first taste sensations the fetus experienced in the womb. Indeed, it is thought that the flavors determined by the mother's diet are found in the amniotic fluid where the fetus is able to perceive them. Another element that helps a newborn adapt to its new environment is rocking. Prior to the birth, the fetus is rarely still. The mother moves constantly, even in her sleep. Birth introduces the infant to the motionlessness of the world outside the womb. The infant probably reacts by feelings of separation and solitude. Instinctively, mothers know that rocking, like their movements during pregnancy, calms the baby. A newborn's obvious sensitivity to its parents' voices or to specific sounds, such as music, show that an infant can at birth recognize information heard and memorized during the pregnancy. These abilities also facilitate the infant's entry into a world filled with new things. Where language perception is concerned, studies have shown that infants are able to distinguish phonemes at a very early age. English adults easily distinguish between the phonemes L and R, while Japanese adults usually cannot. Japanese infants, however, are able to distinguish between them. This proves that in terms of perceiving phonemes, English and Japanese infants are not all that different, at least up to 2 or 3 months. After that, immersed in their mother tongue, Japanese babies gradually lose this ability. A similar phenomenon occurs when a language is learned. A child is able to learn any language, but very early a selection is made among the phonemes. Some become more important, others less so. It is at the expense of this loss that the child will acquire at about 6 months the ability to distinguish between his or her mother tongue and a foreign language. At birth, the newborn's visual acuity is nothing like that of an adult. A newborn baby can see certain things. For example, it sees colorful objects that are close to its face. However, it will experience difficulty in focusing. In addition, a newborn does not coordinate his eyes very well. Vision develops very rapidly, however. Already at about 2 months, an infant can focus properly. Observations have shown that the newborn prefers flat, highly colorful objects that are relatively simple. As it grows older, the baby will prefer objects that are bigger, more complex, and that have subtleties. Infants also show preferences with regard to light. In a bright, constant light, the newborn will usually keep its eyes closed. In semi-darkness, however, the infant will open its eyes wide and display a great deal of eyeball activity. Birth is only one evolutionary stage in a person's life, and that evolution, conditioned by a genetic inheritance that is unique, and by the environment, begins at the moment of conception. While some researchers are striving to understand the cognitive development process, others are trying to stimulate and refine it. Hypermedia, a computer tool, shows great promise in this regard. Of all the microcomputer and shoulders above the rest. Not only does it provide the user, but its popularity with children, thanks to computer games especially, is now firmly established. Among the dozens and dozens of educational software programs that have come out on the market lately, a group of learning specialists have focused on an original software-hardware environment called hypermedia. This computer-based information system allows the student to approach a study subject simultaneously by means of text, image, and sound. Hypermedia is a computer environment that gives students access to all manner of information stored in multimedia databanks. In a hypermedia environment, the user goes from one piece of information to another freely and at leisure. The information is readily accessible even to small children. To consult a hypermedia program or to build one, the student needs a microcomputer and a software program that generates hypermedia structures. Besides providing access to text, audio, and video recordings, photographs, and computer graphics, the software program contains all the tools necessary to structure, organize, and piece all the multimedia data together. Concretely, the image bank is stored on video disc or compact disc. A computer-driven video disc player lets the user display the images on a screen. The microcomputer can also store images taken from a scanner, which is a camera capable of digitizing images. Sounds can also be recorded and stored in the system. To create a hypermedia program on a given subject, first the student analyzes the data in the text, audio, and video banks. He then establishes criteria to interconnect the information as judiciously as possible. The student may, for instance, follow a visual logic. Components associated with an overall view can thus be visualized individually through a detailed view. Students therefore use their ability to structure information according to logic or references they have chosen themselves. In addition, since the same information can be expressed in various media, they must determine which of these media will best highlight the information. A group of students produced a hypermedia structure on two major trends in 19th century painting: Impressionism and Realism. They based their analysis of Impressionism primarily on the study of a work by Claude Monet, the Argenteuil Bridge. They also referred to several dozen other paintings as secondary illustrations. By studying Monet's painting, they identified four essential characteristics of Impressionist painting: the quality of the brushstroke, the treatment of shadows, that of light, and the use of everyday elements, such as the Argenteuil Bridge. The student can then draw comparisons between the Surrealist and Impressionist styles based on the four considerations selected. Other students consulted a hypermedia system developed by a group of publishers on the architecture of the chateaux of France, from the Middle Ages to the 17th century. The field of study focused on 15 chateaux in the Loire Valley region in France. The research was based on three considerations: geographical location, architectural forms and organization, and historical events. Students can, for instance, compare the information structures for each of the 15 chateaux. For instance, they can follow the evolution of towers through various periods, or observe the resemblances between two chateaux of the same era. The educational objective of this hypermedia system is to identify simple characteristic architectural forms and organizations. This enables students to later recognize the same architectural elements in any building and pinpoint the period in which it was built. The primary objective of a computer-based environment such as a hypermedia system is to develop children's natural ability to organize information according to coherent structures. In a world in which the media bombards us with staggering amounts of information, the ability to analyze, structure, and use information coherently is vital. In the last 20 years, scientific research has uncovered data that has greatly advanced the development of cerebral gymnastics. We're not referring to magic pills or miracle formulas, but rather to cognitive stimulation and memory workshops. In the developed world, as life expectancy is extended, the proportion of older people is steadily increasing. More and more research is therefore being focused on ways of postponing the effects of aging, and especially aging of the brain. A common complaint among healthy old people is that they are losing their memory. The brain is made up of billions of nerve cells, or neurons. As we age, some of these neurons die. This is often accompanied by a weakening of our learning faculties. On this score, however, individuals vary greatly. So much so that a marked difference in learning faculties can really only be observed between people aged 75 and over, and young adults in their 30s. Faculties such as perception, attention, or concentration are the first to fail. For example, an elderly person will not grasp the information on a display board as quickly as a young person will. It is not visual acuity that is at fault, but rather a weakening of the faculty of perception. The brain processes the information at a slower rate. On the other hand, in other areas, the elderly can gain ground. Their language, vocabulary, and syntax is usually better. Their reasoning and their judgment become more refined. This is what is commonly known as wisdom. The brain is organized in neuron networks. From a morphological viewpoint, a neuron has a cell body which is equipped with specific receptor properties. This cell body has a number of extensions, several dendrites, and a single axon. The dendrites are relatively short, branched extensions of the nerve cell. The axon is a single long process that extends in arborization. The arborizations interconnect at the level of the cell body or the dendrites with one or several nearby neurons. That junction between the extremity of an axon and another neuron is called a synapse. The information between neurons first flows along the axons by nerve impulse. Once it has reached the synapses, the nerve impulse triggers the production of neurotransmitters, chemical messengers which, in the final phase, take care of the transmission of information between neurons. Each neuron therefore interconnects with thousands of others in a complex network. The more information the brain processes, the greater number of brain regions involved. This multiplies the synaptic connections and increases the quantities of neurotransmitters produced. "20 years ago, it was thought that the development of the brain ended at about 25 years of age. This was followed by a plateau until the age of 40. Today, studies have revealed a quite different reality. That reality is being defined by the researchers as mental plasticity. Mental plasticity is translated by growth of the dendritic arborizations. That growth increases the synaptic contact surface. This, in turn, promotes the transmission of information. As a result, with regular intellectual stimulation, a healthy older brain maintains that plasticity, offsetting the natural loss of neurons. Nowadays, we know that the more active our brain cells are, the more chances they have to remain so. Lazy, inactive neurons are more inclined to disappear. The concept of mental plasticity has led to the development of mental activation programs. These programs are designed for normal elderly persons who complain of a failing memory. They consist of exercises that call upon the participants' faculties of attention and concentration. The objective is not to gain new knowledge, but to learn how to make the most of one's mental powers. The exercises combine various strategies to improve memory retention. A mental image, for instance, helps to imprint a memory in the brain. Associations of ideas are strung together based on references drawn from daily life. To memorize space, the exercises are based upon geometrical shapes, which the person learns to decompose and recreate mentally. These mental activation programs are particularly recommended for people who are isolated or deprived of social interaction and intellectual stimulation. If there is any truth in the saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, a brain that has been made to work all its life will probably age better than one that is not. Unfortunately, this does not mean that mental exercise will prevent neurons from dying or will protect the brain from disease. Regardless of age, cognitive stimulation should encourage the desire to learn as much as it teaches how to learn.